Hello, and welcome everyone to Worse Than Death. From the same creator who originally made Home, which is a indie title that I did a review for, I think maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I can't quite remember. Worse Than Death is, in my opinion, how should I say, a further extension of that concept. You play as a girl returning to her high school reunion one year, and things go terribly, terribly wrong. Now, in Home, the sprites were really small. They're a lot larger in Worse Than Death, along with having text profile images that are of, how should I say, more of an actual art versus the pixelization of the actual game. Now, compared to Home, the bigger differences are now, I do want to state that this is a little bit of a spoiler to Home in a gameplay sense, not a story sense, but I think it's important to mention for the evolution of the game. But I wanted to put it out there because I feel like it kind of wounds Home a little bit. So, you do have a running option in this game to move much faster and escape things that are trying to get you, which is not something that happens in Home. When you're playing Home completely blind, you may get the vibe that something may potentially be following you or chasing you, but it never comes to fruition. You never actually end up having anything, unless they're all actual creatures that do come after you. So you have running, you do vault over some objects, you do have a hiding mechanic that hide in little cubby spaces, which reminds me of another survival horror game. I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head, but it was something that was kind of Silent Hill-ish. That was actually really, really good. I can't remember for the life of me what the hell it was called again, though. It's been a while. Damn it. Damn it. But, because Home, you didn't have anything after you, so it was pretty much just a go through the story expansion experience type thing. The thing that was interesting about Home is the atmosphere of it, along with its very choose your own adventure kind of vibe. Your actions in the game dictated the ending you got, and that's kind of one of the de-evolutions in this game. While this game added stuff that does come after you, they're pretty minimal, and they usually stay where they are unless you get spotted. Interestingly, if you get spotted and make a mad dash for the next area, they will actually temporarily follow you into the next area trying to get you. So that's actually an interesting little idea. So you still, just because you change screens doesn't always necessarily mean you're safe from whatever may have spotted you, which is a nice little thing in my opinion. But the choose your own adventure kind of aspect was put to the side, possibly because of this. On one hand, I can see having no real enemy threat making it vastly easier to do something like that. But at the same time, I kind of felt like that kind of took a, how should I say, a opportunity to enthrall more replay and possibly even more backstory about the setting of it. Now, the story basically, as I said, the main character is going to a reunion and things go bad. Very bad. Like, as in people dying bad. And you have to go through your former hometown, trying to find out what's going on, try to save the people that you know, and ultimately find out what is happening in your little hometown. Why all of a sudden is everyone being murdered to death? Now, there isn't a whole lot craziness going on in the game itself. It does have puzzle solving and a few, how should I say, kind of Silent Hill, Resident Evil-esque puzzles where your screen will fill up with a puzzle and you gotta do something in that. There aren't many of these. This isn't a super long game, and only one of them really threw me off. And another one kind of gave me a little minor problem. But the one that really threw me off was odd because I messed with it for so long, I gave up and looked up the solution and realized I had actually done the solution. But the problem is, for some reason, apparently the puzzle doesn't acknowledge the solution if you do it after failing a previous attempt. So you kind of have to back out and go back in to get to acknowledge the solution, which is a bit of an oddity in my opinion on that. But that's the only real trouble I have with the game. It does bring the atmosphere home, like I said. It still has that kind of, you're not sure what the fuck's going on. That I kind of actually think that's pretty decent, considering it's a very pixelated adventure. But at the same time, as I said in Home, I think it would have been nice to have something that actually does kind of go after you, in a personal opinion. But seeing how the monsters in this, maybe that was, how should I say, a little more, wanting a little bit more than what the developer might be able to. Because admittedly, they're an indie team, they're very small, they're not like some giant, AAA company or anything. So I guess in a way, I'm wanting something that maybe they're not capable of doing. Because I do feel like the monsters in Worse Than Death are just kind of an obstacle and not necessarily so intriguing. And in fact, in my opinion, at the end, you're kind of left really wondering what the hell they were even to begin with, because the ending is a little bit confusing for a few elements. It leaves, how should I say, a case of plot wholeness, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion on that. Audio-wise, and that does a very good job. Again, like I said, it has the setting and all that. I feel like it does a nice job. Cast, that's okay. There was I could say, pretty decent twist I didn't see coming. Like, I spent a huge chunk of the game assuming it's like, oh yeah, that's gonna happen at some point. Yep, any minute. Yep. And then this is completely twisted me on that. While it's not the main focus of the story, it was a twist I wasn't actually expecting about one of the characters, honestly. But overall, I would say in a few ways it involved more than what Home was, and de-evolved a few. I think it would have been a little bit more interesting to have some of the kind of choose your own adventure, maybe have a few better or worse endings depending on things you could do in the environment to maybe better save or fail people, because there are multiple people who do die in the game. And I think like maybe there was a missed opportunity to make some like different paths, like being able to save some of those characters by your actions or something. Worse Than Death is a bit of a short game. You'll be able to likely beat it in 1 or 2 settings likely if you have a decent experience in games. Like I said, it's just mainly puzzle solving and a little bit of stealth from a few monsters they added, but nothing that's complicated at all. But Worse Than Death. So let's get to the nitty gritty, the value. What is the value of Worse Than Death? I thought it was a decent game, so I think, personally, I would give it a $7.99, which puts it a little overpriced because it sells, aside from one platform, it goes for $9.99. And it's a little weird too because Home is $4.99, and I kind of feel like it's kind of a tough decision which of the two is better, because they both, in a way, go about their games differently. Like, they kind of have what I would consider the other's kind of lacking thing, if you get what I mean now. But the one is cheaper and the other is more expensive. But I think $7.99 is a better price myself, ultimately, for its digital price. Now, as I mentioned, and as many of you know, I do prefer getting physical a lot of times, or DRM free, and games like this, I usually prefer to get DRM free because, well, it's usually the cheaper option, and it's usually a little bit more justifying because of certain aspects of that. It's not, again, a terrible game or anything. It's just kind of hard to justify like a 19 plus price tag for just it. Now, luckily, there are good and bad things about this particular situation for you, because there's a new version of this game coming out physically that might be a little more justifying of a price, and these kind of things are good. But let's first start with the release I got. So my release is the PS4 version, which is just this game, and there's nothing else with that. If you're wanting to get this version for the PS4, because the other thing is actually a Switch offloading that's going to be coming out. Again, I'll be getting that in a second. But if you're wanting to get this on PS4, you are in a little bit of a problem, because the main problem is it's kind of pricey for what it is. Most eBay listings have it for basically $40 plus, which, yeah, I'm sorry, Benjamin, but yeah, again, your game's not terrible, no offense, but it's just there's a lot of other games I would break down to pay that much money for than this, which is, again, not an insult to your game. This is always the tricky part of these videos for these kind of games. When it comes to the physical version, these type of games are way easier to do for digital, and that's the tricky part. And you know, I forgot to mention. I was going to mention it, but I forgot to mention. One of the weird things is, so Benjamin has made 3 games: Home, Worse Than Death, and Alone With You. And as far as I can tell, Worse Than Death does not have a DRM-free option anywhere. Home and Alone With You do. But as far as I can tell, Worse Than Death isn't available DRM-free anywhere, which is very strange to me. I don't see it available anywhere. And, like, let's see, can I find his, like, home page real quick? Maybe his home site might have something. Let's see. Because sometimes, I know a few creators sometimes list a DRM free option on the website. Like, that's how the Oregon Trails originally was. It was the only way to get DRM free, oddly enough, when that first came out. Yeah, as far as I can tell, there is no DRM free option for this game, which is very strange, because that would normally be my recommendation. Because obviously $10 is a lot more better than $40 plus. If you don't mind Steam and such, it is of course available through Humble Bundle and Steam and that, but no DRM free option, which is really weird considering his other 2 games do. So I'm not really sure why that's a thing. But yeah, so for those who want to actually own this physically and you have a Switch, it's not out yet. It's going to come out, as of the recording, it's going to come out in about a day and 19 hours. But it's supposed to go on sale on Tuesday, August 16th on Limited One Games. And it's going to be open pre-order to September 18th. So you'll have a good amount of time to be able to buy this new version of Home, Alone With You, and Worse Than Death, all complete on the Nintendo Switch cartridge. So that's a much better option, because you get 3 games. Now it's retailing for $39.99. I will probably went with $29.99, so it'd be like $10 per game. And yeah, I know, Home's $4.99, but you get what I mean, like. But yeah, and his other game, Alone With You, is also $9.99. So Home is actually a bit cheaper, so it's kind of feels a little bit more bumped up. Personally, I think $29.99 would have been more justifiable myself, but you know, that's just me. But you're getting 3 games and $40, and that's the minimum for the PS4 version, Worse Than Death. So yeah, if you really want to get this physically, that's likely your better suit because you'll get his other two games, which also had physical PS4 versions as well. So, so that is what I would recommend for you if you have a Switch or plan on getting a Switch. It's gonna have a month pre-order basically, so that is the better route in my opinion on that sense for you. If you have to have it physically, because like yeah, the limited one version's a little pricey now. It's a bit of a shame in these kind of scenarios for some of these, but yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it for overall. Oh, and one more. I skimmed over it. It's oddly enough $3.99 on mobile. Oddly enough. Well, everything else it's $9.99 on mobile. It is interesting to note. It is $3.99 on mobile markets. Kind of a little bizarre. I always find that a very strange thing when the pricings are very different like that. We don't have that too often, but sometimes certain console stores and that have had varying prices on things that are a little bit bizarre. I do recommend Worse Than Death if you like indie games and you don't want something super complicated and you want something short that ain't going to be, like Elden Ring. Well, I'm all the way over 300 hours in Elden Ring and still going. If you want a short, simple affair, and to be honest, these games, now, I haven't played alone with you, but I have played home, and I think these are fantastic games that would be good for portability. So, if you play your Switch on portable, I think it's an excellent choice for that as well. And I do have to say, I find the way the game, because it has them separated in columns. Home on top, Alone with You second, and Worse Than Death. And it has being home alone with you is worse than death, and being in is all off to the sides. So, but I thought that was kind of a funny thing they did with the title. It'll be amusing to see if people think that's actually all one game, and it's literally being called Being Home Alone with You is Worse Than Death. I admit that's kind of funny, but it could be a little confusing for people not familiar with the dev and his games. But it is very amusing in my opinion. But those are my thoughts on Worse Than Death. It's just another simple little side-scrolly kind of affair, nothing complicated at all. If you're interested in that kind of thing, I recommend it. Try to get a little on sale. $10, of course, isn't a horrible price, but I feel like honestly, if it kind of did multiple endings and you could affect the outcome of some of the people who die in the game, I think that could have actually made it a lot more justifiable, even for physical release potentially. Because, like, honestly, if they just took home, added monsters, and kept a lot of the multiple endings and kind of enhanced it. Like, I feel like there's a missed opportunity to maybe like have a wacky Silent Hill joke ending and stuff. Because there are some puns and jokes at the expense of certain things in the game. So like I think it just would have been nice. I feel like it's a big missed opportunity. But again, that's just me. I'm not here trying to tell devs what to make. I'm just here to tell you my opinions on the game ultimately at the end of the day, and I think it's worth your time if you like these kind of little pixel indie games. But yeah, so what do I think of the story for Worse Than Death now, spoiler wise that is? So Worse Than Death had a interesting twist that isn't part of the main plot itself, but about the main character themselves. Kind of felt, I mean, like, on one hand, it's not like it's impossible or something. It just felt kind of like, how should I say, kind of felt baited red herring, because it seemed like it was obviously going to go that way, but then it just comes kind of out left field. So, you find out the main character actually had a crush on her best friend's fiance. when the game really initially starts up, making you think that she was like, at the beginning, she like tells her best friend that she was going to like tell him something, and like it sets up this kind of vibe that she has a crush on him throughout the game, and she's really determined to find him in that through the events of the course of the game. And then at the end, it's just like, no, I actually loved her. Which, I mean, this, you know, not to say there's anything wrong with that, but it just felt like you were kind of being baited in it. I mean, it was unexpected. I'll give it the credit for that. Like, a lot of these games sometimes feel like they're predictable. That's kind of the nice thing about it. I mean, I'll be fair. I was just like, oh, well, I certainly wasn't expecting that. So, it was a kind of a nice twist, Willie. It's just, it felt like you were being baited into it a little bit. But, other than that, the main plot, it has a few holes, a few, like, unexplained things that are a little confusing. Like, basically, your best friend's fiance is a ghost. She died, and at the end you see her ghost with her father. Her father was murdering the people in the town. Frustration, hatred, different reasons for every individual person in that. But overall, he basically hated everyone to the point because his daughter died in an accident when they were in high school, or in her friends there. And Grace is basically just a ghost at the end, saying like she was like there possibly doing stuff. It feels kind of, because like I kind of peeked into some of the theory crafting with the game, and like the the monsters you encounter in the game are kind of not explained. Some people said maybe it's like some weird interpretation of the Grace's father, the one that was murdered. Well, she wasn't murdered; she died in an accident. But whether the monster might be somehow Grace's father being viewed as a monster, Grace's emotions running wild in the environment, like several elements are kind of left unexplained. And then there's like how you all move in different places. Like, why did Flynn end up at the cemetery? Why did you end up at the hospital? Like, there's just a lot of random oddities that just don't ever get explained at all, that make the story feel a little bit like it just happened for the sake of the story continuing with no explanation. And I'm not saying everything has to be spelled black and white. I mean, look at stuff like Dark Souls and that, which leaves so much room open to interpret the story in that. But I just feel like there's just a lot of, it doesn't make any, like, there's not any real, like, why, like, Grace's father was ultimately shown to be the one murdering everyone. Like, why would Grace's father dump you at the hospital? Why did Grace's father dump Flynn at the cemetery? Like, it's just weird. But it's not a terrible game again. It just feels like it tried to do a few steps of things from home. But I feel like ultimately, like, I feel like it should have took a little bit more from home, like with the endings and that. Like, I really feel like they could have expanded a lot more on the cast, the events, some backstory. Could have done maybe a joke ending or two, depending on some things. Like, I feel like there could have been a lot more done with this, which is ultimately why I would say is the big shame. I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunity, but ultimately, those are all my thoughts. Again, if you feel like you learned anything interesting, feel free to leave a like. If you feel like you learned nothing at all, feel free to leave a dislike guilt-free. And until next time, I'll see you here at the Proving Grounds.